Welcome to the Digible Dudes podcast. I'm David.
I'm Reid.
Reid, well, we were just saying we have a cornucopia of podcasts that
And we've
in our-
never had a cornucopia.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a cornucopia.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's that time of year your girls are going to start drawing cornucopias. Or maybe the twins are past that age, but I'm
No,
sure.
I don't think that they are. Actually, Ella won an art competition in 6th grade for a pumpkin patch. I didn't see a cornucopia in there, but she did do the pumpkin patch.
Drawing, painting, watercolors?
She did watercolors.
Yeah.
She was super happy because they put it up in the library. We saw it at the parent-teacher conference. Very proud daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we'll move on to cornucopias for Thanksgiving.
You're behind on Ted Lasso, right?
No, I'm not. I don't think. Did they release this to season 3?
Oh, no. So in this, we're not through the second season yet, but he goes to the school and she's selling the kids paintings for the teacher is. You remember this part?
I'm blanking.
Oh, the teacher.
I was so scarred by the season finale or second to last.
Well, I'm not there yet. Then
I've suppressed the rest of the season.
Well, anyways, the teacher's fundraising by selling kids paintings to people during like a wine night or whatever, and that I wonder how much your daughters went for. So.
Well, I'd end up probably being the one to buy it.
Yeah,
I might go $1.
Yeah. Wow, she'd be really sad. Well, a few years ago she would have been pumped, but
even now, $1 still matters. So they're being raised right.
Every dollar counts.
That's right.
What's Ryan's goal?
Ryan's goal? Oh, to make $1.
Yeah, Digible's gonna make $1 this year.
That's right.
Well, what I was getting to is that we have a cornucopia podcast because we just came off AIM where I think we did I think you were counting like 6 or 7. Then we have this one that we did today which is with Alex from Opiniion. And we have like 2 more hitting next week. So has nothing to do with this intro besides the fact that people are going to be hearing a lot about us.
Well, hopefully it lays over or lays nicely beside some road trips or something,
oh, yeah.
Meaning,
yeah.
You better have some extra time on your hands.
Yeah,
and some do for the holidays, some don't. But
maybe we're one of those podcasts that some people, they just need something to fall asleep to. And they're like, oh, these 2 drone on for a while. Yeah. It really puts me out.
Well, when Joya said she listens to us when she's running, I was like, A, stunned she's listening to us. And then B, the fact that she does it while she's running. Because I would use it as well for, something to put me to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. I would do.
We're great self-promoters.
I think that would be my move. I'm pretty sure, because there were times like when I forgot my Kindle on this last trip, it's like, oh, I'll put in my earbuds and fall asleep to something. But there's certain casts that I'm not going to fall asleep to, and then there's others that's like, that's prime. Yeah, saving that one.
Right, totally.
And that's, I guess, ours,
Well, maybe some episodes more than others.
Yeah.
But not this one. Now I'll transition and hype us back up, or at least hype Alex up. We had Alex Bennett from Chief Revenue Officer from Opiniion on, and or you'll be hearing him shortly. Yeah. Forget how we do this. But it was, I thought, a really fun, session. Just hearing about all that Opinion's doing to kind of disrupt, the review space and reputation. They're a unique breed. They're not reputation and they're not just review generation and that secret sauce of having those campaign triggers. So they got a really cool platform, but he hasn't been in the space forever. So it's fun to hear a little bit of those roots, I guess, or his path. Like we always ask, how'd you get into multifamily? And sounds like a lot of us, he's in it to stay, but I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Well, I only learned about them maybe a year ago or so. And I think he said that they've been in maybe 3.5 years in multifamily. Which we had met a few at AIM too that were the same way, where they started outside and then had transitioned in. But like you said, I feel like they generate reviews on campaign triggers better than any other platform I'd seen. You also have the more customer survey type stuff that they do too. But he was saying in the episode, it's not something that they compete with, or it's not like if you want a super customer analytics platform, it doesn't fit that bill. But if you need something that kind of is more than a Survey Monkey, then it fits that bill. So I think they have a really nice, they're threading the needle on that type of product really well. Because frankly, I would have trouble if, unless I'm one of the big ones like Graystar, buying a Qualtrics platform or something. It's so how do you cost it out to the per property to buy something like Qualtrics? You can't. So you have to be a giant management company. So if you're not, and you're not going to go that way, then I think Opinion fits a really nice bill.
Yeah, agreed. We got some fun stories too. Well, all three of us actually shared some of our bad experiences where we wrote some negative reviews, and I think that could be its own, like, not book, but one of those that you pick up at the airport
Mm,
where all you're doing is reading, like, worst reviews like
yeah,
ever generated.
yeah,
You and I probably wouldn't make the cut. I think I was still nice enough, even though I was pretty pissed off about those tacos.
yeah,
You went with the chimney, and he went with the stuck on an elevator
yeah.
at hotel.
Except I didn't leave a review for the
Oh,
chimney
you didn't?
sweeper. I should have left a review,
Ah,
but I was saying like I didn't. That's why I'm holding it onto it, and I'm so angry about it.
mhm.
Versus you guys have gotten that a little bit off your chest. But how many reviews do you think you write a year?
I think I said it's more. The question is how many in a decade,
Yeah,
not in a year, because that was my first
that's where I'm
ever.
going.
I think,
Yeah.
in certainly in the whatever 2020s.
Why is that?
I don't think it does a whole lot. I mean, personally, like, I don't see a whole lot of change happen when I write a review, and it's the effort. I'm lazy when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I have more of this anonymous feeling to myself where it's like I'm as you know, like I have 0 posts on Instagram. I I can't the last time I posted on Facebook, I don't know. And I never even wanted to get on Facebook to begin with. So I'm more of the anonymous type, and that's why I don't want to leave the reviews. But with this with us running a business, I've thought like, oh, I should provide feedback. Feedback's valuable, and I preach that even when we're like doing Zooms with clients or prospects. I'm like, oh, give feedback. We really crave the feedback. Therefore, since I'm saying that, should I not have the attitude that I should be leaving more reviews? And am I sort of not being fair, I guess, with the message I'm preaching, that I should be leaving good and bad reviews? And forget about the anonymousness, the anonymity. No, maybe,
Anonymity.
sure. For
Man, I'm on fire
I
today.
what
I
was the
said
other?
specificity. I just got it right again.
Oh man,
Mondays are usually horrible
are
for
you?
me,
Yeah,
and some of the most difficult tongue twisting. I've nailed it.
yeah.
I gotta trace back, see what I ate last night, or drank, or didn't drink.
It's a shame that you are going to go play pickup basketball next and you're not doing that like wrap off. If you were doing the wrap off, I feel like you'd be, podium today.
The wrap off.
Well, if you were, what do they call like when like Eminem goes down
Oh
Eight
my
Mile and
gosh.
he
Yeah. There's never a day.
wrap
There
off,
never
wrap
will be
on?
a day
No,
that I
that's,
participate in a wrap off. God help
that's
me.
probably not even like what they call them these
Yeah.
days, but that's what this
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
fella calls them. Well, yeah, maybe I should be leaving more reviews is my overall point, but I haven't. I can only think of one review I've ever left in the last 20 years,
Mhm.
and it may even be more than 20 years ago. I left a review. So you'll know this. I didn't play like organized sports growing up. I was on though a competitive paintball team, and we tooled around the country. And one of the providers for us, one of the possible sponsors, sent me a case of paint, and I reviewed that case of paint. But the thing back to the anonymousness, would that work?
Anonymity.
All right, I had to go that way because that one's harder for me. The
Mhm.
anonymity? No. Well, back to being a secret, secret person. The pseudonym alias that I put it under was Jimbo. So
Mhm.
I wrote the review as Jimbo, and little did I know that then the sponsor was going to take my review and start putting it on all of their marketing material. So they were like, Jimbo says, and it had my long paragraph about
Oh
how
my
awesome
God.
their product was, and I was like,
You could have
wow.
had royalties coming your way. You totally missed an
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah, I messed up. I shouldn't have gone by Jimbo, but
Well,
that's
that
the
was
review.
deep. That was deep thinking from David, being very introspective, self-aware, trying not to be a hypocrite.
Yeah,
Do as I say, not as I do.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think feedback's good. Especially, I'll say, and maybe I'm giving you an out, but business to business, I think, is usually the context that you're
Mm,
you're uh, talking within. Whereas for consumers, it can be overboard. Like, it can get to be obnoxious if you're like constantly splattering. Like,
mm.
you know, I think I think a lot of reviews just are obnoxious.
Yeah, I'm gonna think some more about this on my run later to just decide if I'm gonna make a change and start leaving more reviews.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I'll be right there with you to a decade now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Alex was great. Really appreciate his time, and I think they have a cool product. So, if he said he'll be at OpTech, but they're kind of starting to make the circuit now that they're committed to apartments. But if not, you can always just reach out via the Opinion website. So, hopefully, you guys will find this conversation interesting. But we sure enjoyed it.
No doubt.
Okay, we're here with Alex Bennett, who's CEO of Opinion. Right? You are CEO.
CRO, Chief Revenue Officer.
Yaro, what the heck, man? Don't make
Yeah.
me redo this. He asked if we did a lot of stuff in post-production, Reid, and we said, "Not a chance. We don't. We're not gonna fix anything." But you are one of the founders, yeah?
Yep. Yeah. Me, myself, Morgan Daly, Devin Shirtliff, and Justin Bingham.
All right, number of them there. Well, Alex, I told you beforehand that we'd start where you could give us a quick overview of your background and then what Opinion is before we take you back in time. So, give us a little bit of your history, what brought you to join up with that group, and how would you give the elevator pitch for Opinion?
Yeah, of course. Let's see. My history is pretty boring. I actually have been in the pharmaceutical space for a long time, pharmaceutical type sales, and found some opportunity to grow elsewhere. We've always found, I've always been friends with Devin and Morgan and Justin, and just found an opportunity to start Opinion and grow. In the beginning, early days of Opinion, we really serviced any market. We were growing in every area. We wanted to help companies generate Google reviews and control their online reputation rather than having their clients control their online reputation, right? The market. And it just has grown from there. We found a really cool niche in multifamily along the way that allowed us to we actually found, excuse me, let me back up. We actually found that a lot of the companies that generate online reputation inside of multifamily are very reactive. They want to help you reply to the reputation that's already landing online. And we had a go with a few companies that tried Opinion early on, and it really has grown from there. We offer a proactive approach versus the reactive approach that's on in the industry now to get feedback and put that feedback or direct that feedback where it matters most to the client as well as to the properties themselves. And since that point, we've grown in multifamily, and it's been our product has been developed more. In the early days, products aren't what they're all cracked up to be, and today it really is, and we're excited to continue to grow.
Yeah, so I would when I describe Opinion to people, I think of it like it is reputation management, but I think of it as review generation as first of all the I'd say like the differentiator for you guys. Like you don't just like wait for inbound reviews to come in. You guys can help set up triggers and campaigns with someone's property management system to help incite reviews as opposed to just having the on-site team ask for them. But then you guys have some additional stuff that we can get to later as far as surveying your current clients and different things of that nature. But would you does it make you cringe at all when people think of you as reputation management because of how I guess you guys are different in that space, but everyone like reputation management is like, yeah, I need it, but they don't think it's sexy or anything that they really want to focus on.
Reputation management has become its own. I mean, the definition of that is different to different people. I mean, we speak to a lot of companies. We'll say, "What are you doing for your reputation management?" And they'll say, "Well, we put postcards on the front desk, and we have our on-site staff asking for people to leave feedback or reviews afterward." Other companies will say, "Yep, we do online reputation. We reply to all the reviews that land inside of Google." Others will include apartments.com and wherever else they're getting reviews or getting their online reputation lands. So it really is when you say cringe is maybe the wrong word, but just the definition of that word, I feel like is very different for different people. Our goal at Opinion is really to get feedback from your residents proactively, and then help them to put that where it matters. Right? If you wanted to drive an online review to Google, a postcard on the front desk, you'll you can ask around. I'm sure you're trying that, or you know someone who's tried that. But the response rate is incredibly low. To get someone to, pull up the postcard, Google your store, log into their Gmail account, click write a review, and then write you a review is a lot of work. Where
Reid,
we really shorten the process on that to make it only 2 clicks for the resident.
yeah. Well, Reid, I was going to ask, do you cringe when someone calls us an agency?
uh, no, because I get a lot of companies, are evolve, or I hope they are, and I hope we are, and so I understand that those are our roots, and that still comes up, but it does irk me.
Well, yeah, I was going to say,
The
because I hear.
cringe, yeah, I'm with Alex. That's maybe the wrong word, or a little too strong for me. I don't shy away from the fact that that's our roots. So
Yeah.
all good.
Well, in an interview, you're like, I hear it now. You're like, when we're interviewing a candidate, you're like, not just another digital agency. Like there's something, like you try to put a little bit of separation. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if Alex felt that way. So it seems like he is similar feeling to you.
Yeah, it's a good point. We kind of put ourselves in the resident experience category. On the reputation, definitely for driving and generating reviews. But yeah, that's a good point.
Well, it helps on some level, right? Like if you sound totally foreign, that's actually often a disadvantage. I mean, for some people, they get excited or interested, but if you have some association with, a product or service they're familiar with, it usually actually helps as far as growth and, getting people more comfortable. So that's part of why I can still handle the word agency being thrown at us. I was going to ask, just diving in on some of that proactive, reactive thread that you were talking about. Is it fair to assume that not only is it smart to be proactive because you can just simply get in front of things and then manage to it instead of kind of backpedaling, like with either complaints or, well, that's where I was going to go. Isn't it typically going to be complaints if you're only reacting versus if you're proactive, you have a far better chance of getting some positive reviews generated?
That's a really good point. It's a good question. We have actually found this is kind of the end of my response. We've actually found a really large correlation with being able to handle residents' feedback in real time and then renewing their lease at the end, right? If you felt like, for example, let's say your AC stopped working and you live in Florida, you would want that fixed immediately, right? And a management company probably wants to fix that immediately as well. But we all know that things don't happen in a perfect world the perfect way always, right? So let's say you submit that as, hey, I need my AC fixed ASAP, and the management company takes a day and a half to get to you. For that day and a half, that resident's sitting there and they're mulling over this fact of like, why doesn't my management company care about me? Why am I burning up in here? I'm sweating. I'm, all of the above. With Opiniion, we wanted to capture that feedback from the resident and get it to the management company in real time. So if they've submitted their maintenance request, we're going to follow up on that. Hey, how was your experience with the maintenance team?
Yeah.
If it wasn't great, we want to get that to the management company in real time so they can fix it and get somebody back out there to fix the AC correctly versus have somebody upset getting to the end of their lease, thinking back to their experience that one time where, so and so didn't come fix the AC on time and not renewing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Such a
Yeah.
simple thing, like, and yet so few, I'll say, in the industry seem to execute at that level, meaning that kind of real time or within 24 hours. And we know it's one of our biggest KPIs at Digible is just response time for our account management team. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how often we get complimented on that. And it doesn't seem super hard, but I'm not trying to be unfair to anybody else, but it's like if you just respond within one business day, people will love you, or they'll at least work with you, especially if there's something that they're not happy about. I don't know if you're willing now, or if we want to get into it a little bit later on some of the data collection David referenced before we jumped on, but just how you guys have done a great job there. But it would seem that there is an optimal time within a lease as far as this is when we see the most 4 stars or 5 stars versus when we see 2 stars. And it's, the last day, as they're leaving, or it's the first day, or it's in the middle. And I know none of that's probably true, but I'm just using that as a jumping off point for you.
Sure.
But I just imagine a protracted like line graph of like the different, ratings based on the time that you get, the time that they're generated.
Yeah, sure. And I think a lot of it comes down to the staff. I mean, when residents have experiences with your staff, they are probably having great experiences, right? The management companies are training their staff, their on-site teams to really handle customers or residents in the best way possible. And so with our tool, we are integrated with the property management solution, and we build triggers based off of completed events inside of that property management system, right? So whether that's a move in, a move out, a maintenance request, a lease up, a property tour, whatever that is for that resident, whatever they're experiencing, we want to capitalize on the experience they just had, whether that's positive or negative, right? If it's positive, we want to capitalize. Man, you just moved into your new home. You love it here. We love having you here. Tell us how your experience was, right? They're leaving a 5-star review in Google at that point because we sent them the message to make it an easy process to get them to to get them to Google, right? And then on the negative side, if somebody does have a bad experience with the move in, it's not ideal, and it's not it's the on-site team's not aiming for that negative experience to happen, but this isn't a perfect world, and we want to get that feedback back to them, right? So let's say they move into their new home. There's still some trash on the floor. There's clothes in the closet, whatever that may be. We want them to have a direct link to loop that feedback back to the management team so that they can get it fixed. Get John up there to take out the trash and clean that up for them. Right now, they feel like the management team has their back, and next time they have a problem, they know the management team's going to continue to have their back, and they're going to want to, renew at the end of that lease as well.
Well, let's back
Good
up a little
question.
bit to the start, but you and I have had a number of conversations over the last, I guess, year at this point. But
Yeah.
you had told me that you guys didn't start in multifamily. You kind of started with a lot of other industries, including like restaurants, for example. What caused with the four of you guys? I think I counted four that founded Opinion. With you
Yeah.
guys, what was like, oh shoot, this is a problem we need to solve. As you coming from pharmaceutical, Reid and I smirked at each other because he did some pharmacy sales as well. But
Yep.
just wondering what was the problem you guys were attacking, and then how did you got drug into property management? Because I'll give you my thought on it is like, oh shoot, yeah, restaurants and HVAC and whoever probably needs ways to help generate reviews. It's important for all businesses. So you start with that side of things. But as soon as you decide to go down the property management, there's all this back end stuff that you then have to like, it basically like what could have been like 20% of your code base, probably like, 5X's when you decide to go and start building campaigns on the back end. So it must have been a big decision. So just walk us through a little bit of that journey.
Yeah. It was a big decision, and the really the groundwork behind all of it was we think it's a very underserved market, and there's not any other tools that are similar in the space, and so we were able to make such a drastic impact for the communities that we did service early on, which was we serviced we actually AMC was like our first client, and they rolled it out to 300 properties kind of like right off the bat because it worked so well at driving reviews to their platform. And I don't know all the history behind what they've used before, but we knew that just judging off of that experience with AMC, we know that they weren't able to accomplish what we were able to help them with before utilizing Opinion. And so, where you would put your efforts where they're going to matter most, that's kind of why we chose the property management space. You're exactly right. It's not easy to play ball in the space. I think the integrations with the property management solutions, the integrations with the CRMs, to get those triggers built, it's a lot of work. But we chose to make that commitment just based off of knowing how much help and good we could do for the space by creating a better product or an all-in-one tool to help you not only manage that resident experience, but your reputation, your surveys, all in one place, rather than sporadic different tools for different services that may not be able to accomplish the same thing. Does that answer your question?
So were you guys basically like serving all comers, and then somehow AMC sort of rolls up on your doorstep, and they're like, "Oh shoot, this is great. We're gonna roll it out to the portfolio." And is that when the light bulb moment went off for you guys? You're like, "Holy crap!" Like or did you guys have any background with multifamily?
It's funny you said that. We have to integrate our tool, right, to make it work as it should, right? We want to base it off those triggers. So the move-ins, the move-outs, the maintenance requests, we want that to trigger after a transaction occurs or after an experience happens. So early on, we serviced some restaurants, we serviced some franchise models, service-based, and it was for the those franchise companies, it was about driving reviews and driving feedback, the same scenario, and it would be based off of a transaction. And frankly, it was a little easier to integrate with those because they would have tools that were easily adaptable to, their APIs were more accessible and so forth. And when we first onboarded those properties with AMC, Morgan, one of our founders, looked at us and was like, this is this is way more work for way less money," or some sort of that same phrase. And it just has, but at the same time, we just weren't able to see the same amount of growth inside of those other areas. And what I mean by growth is we weren't able to impact their reputations or their companies in the same manner that we were able to impact like AMC's or some of the other properties that we were introduced to after that. And so,
Yeah. Well, that's super helpful. That exactly explains it. And I could imagine like kicking and screaming almost. Like Reid and I, we didn't mean to get in the multifamily, and then we just stumbled into it. But with you guys,
yeah,
with it being more work, it's more work, but that also makes it more defensible. So like once you get hooked up into all these different systems, which I think you guys are, like you have all the major ones and even some of the minor ones at this point,
totally.
it's hard for someone else to come in and do the same work because it takes you years to get that stuff, to get the approvals done. I mean, it took us over a year to get Yardi to green light us to connect with them.
Wow.
So that makes it more defensible. So it's more work, but then it makes you more stable long term, and you don't have to worry
Yeah.
about some super well funded like venture company coming in and just like plugging into all the same open APIs, because it's not that way in this industry.
Well, we didn't realize what we were doing different. Honestly, we had built a tool that would reach out for feedback in the moment people had experiences, and I guess we didn't really realize we were doing something drastically different from the other players in the market. And then we would, I mean, kind of not to pat ourselves on the back, but it was adopted very quickly by a lot of companies, and just because we were able to do something that others have not been able to do, and we've kind of to fall into it is a great way to explain that. And I can't tell you, if I had a nickel for every time somebody told me like I fell into property management, even property managers, regional managers, I mean, everybody, we were just out in Minneapolis with Janet Rosseth and her team, and they did the same thing. They just fell into it and never got out of it because it really catches you, and it makes you feel, it makes you feel good and keeps you around. So, but that was interesting to us is we didn't know were doing something different until we, continue to build the product and continue to service more clients and learn more about the other players in the space or the other online reputation tools. So it's been a ride.
We saw you at a LinkedIn post with you and Janet's crew, and we were happy. We were just mentioning that early this morning because we love Janet and her group. That it's super cool what they're doing in
They're
Minneapolis.
awesome.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I had a question about your, I'll say, current customer base and how much you expect it to change or not change as you look at the next few years for Opinion. But it seems as though lease ups would be the sweet spot because they have no reviews. And so I don't mean to make this all about review generation because I get the platform's broader than
Yeah.
that, more comprehensive. So maybe that's also a good question that you can address within your answer is how much of Opinion's growth has been connected to the review generation versus the rest of the platform. But let me back up or restart there. So on the customer base, we got in this conversation with IMT. I think you all know of them. We're working with them with Ton out on the West Coast, but doesn't make sense for a stabilized property with 135 reviews and 4 stars, to be focusing on or investing still in review generation. And I said some of this was just my own litmus test, but it's like if I'm looking for an apartment and I see 4 star plus and I see frankly over 20 reviews, I'm like, legit, I'm good. Versus if I see something under 4 stars, it may give me pause, certainly under 3. And then if I see 2 reviews, I almost discount them all together. So that leads me back into like what the pie chart looks like for you guys right now. Do you deal with a lot of rehabs where they're like, hey, we just took this property over, these are old reviews, old management, like we need to jumpstart these, etc. And then will that continue in the same kind of composition over the next few years?
No,
It's
it's a
actually a
great
pretty simple question. I just made it sound a lot smarter or more complicated than it
If you
was.
had done it with the British accent, it would have sounded smarter.
Okay, I was going to say
You
probably
messed
more
that
I
up.
wish I
complicated.
had
Smarter.
a paper and pen to take notes on that so I could make sure I'm answering it correctly. But to answer, we've been solely multifamily for the last 3.5 years. That's the only market that we service, and we handle all the above. Lease ups, we handle old properties. You said it best an online reputation. If you purchase a property, a distressed property, or even just not a distressed property, that online reputation doesn't go away, right? If you're buying XYZ property in Minnesota, to use that example, right? That when that changes ownership hands, that's not their Google review page doesn't go away. It stays the same. And so their reviews that are on there, whether they'll be positive or negative, are now no longer a reflection of the new management company or the new ownership group. And so we do a lot of help. We help a lot with companies that purchase a new property and they have low scores. The industry average for a Google review score in the multifamily space is 2.7 stars. So if you're at a 4.0 rating, you're doing pretty well, right, compared to the industry average. And that being said, though, if you're using Minneapolis as the example, right, if you're in Minneapolis and the industry average for that area is 3.9, you need to do something to separate yourself there, right? It doesn't matter if you're above 2.7 if everybody's above 2.7.
Right.
And so if you're in that market and the average is a 3.8 star rating, how do you make yourself stand out, and how do you make yourself, your company or your property, get an unfair advantage on generating leads or prospects from those looking for a place to live? The answer is get more reviews and get better reviews and have them coming in consistently. So there's actually some statistics around this. They found that 90% of individuals are using Google when searching for a new place to live or a new product to purchase or to serve, right? 87% said that they trust an online review as much as a personal recommendation. And then the last stat I'll share, they found that 77% said that they did not trust reviews that were over 90 days old. And so if you want to move into a new community and you saw reviews that were last year or 6 months ago, or, whether they be positive or negative, those sometimes from those statistics, they don't impact your decision on living at the property. Because you want to know what it's like to live there now. You're not moving in 6 months ago. You're moving in today. And and those problems that may have happened in the past, have they been resolved? Is there better reviews now that show that the leasing process is a better experience, or whatever experiences that those 1-star reviews came from? How has the property improved since then? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think there's a lot of common sense to it, but it's not really well defined by companies, and I'll say ourselves included. Like, we've done some work for sure, and we're very vested in SEO, but specifically on the review side of things, having that data to back up that common sense test, if you will, where it's like, because Dave and I both projected a little bit as to if we were going through the experience, would the time of the review matter? And I think it doesn't matter to me if it's within, I don't know if you said this explicitly, but let's say the last few months or maybe the last 6 months. But if I notice that a review hasn't been generated for 2 years, that might actually catch my attention in a bad way, where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what's going on here? What happened? So I think that, giving that kind of directional best practices that are supported by data is super needed. And obviously you guys have
Yeah.
stepped forward in a great way to help deliver that to the industry. And we'd love to just help pay that forward, so more and more people understand that and don't just assume that once I get to 20 reviews and 4 stars, I'm done. But I'll try to finish this little exchange with your growth again, since being the CRO. How scientific, I'll say, even have you guys gotten, or is it just there's a use case no matter what for your platform right now? But what I mean by that is, you mentioned the 2.7 is the average, but then maybe in Minneapolis it's 3.9. I personally would think not to spend time on a 3.9 market versus going to a market where it's like, man, there's a lot of problems here and they
Yeah.
desperately need our help. So I just didn't know. And then same thing with lease ups, where it's like, we got to be crushing the new construction. It's like we should be on all of that. So
Right.
that's what I was trying to get at. Like, if you guys have a very formulaic approach, or if it's just, every property has a use case you guys can get in the door with.
Yeah. I think there's easier, ways to get online reviews, but like a lease up, if you start with 0 and a 0-star rating, it's easy to have a 5-star rating, right? Because you're not having to move that average. But it all starts with the customer journey and a resident experience and how they search for apartments, right? And I mentioned this before, but if you want that unhealthy heaping load uh, of prospects or potential residents, you would want your property to stand out, right? And if the competition, I mean, shooting for 20 reviews, that makes me cringe. Honestly, it's because it's not what builds you. It's not what's going to set you apart from the competition. And having reviews that are 2 years old, yeah, frankly, in my opinion, that doesn't. From what we've seen, it won't help you generate more leads or more eyes on your website.
I think it
So
depends, right? Because I would
yeah,
say that as a user, to Reid's point, if I saw 47 review, well, no, maybe that's if I saw 47 on an apartment website and I was renting, I might actually be like, what the hell? This is a lot. And then I'd go into it. But if I saw 20, to your point, Reid, and it was 4.5 stars, I may not even click in and read those reviews to see that they're old.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I would just be like, yep, passes the sniff test. In fact, smells
yeah,
real good. And then I would go to the website. And if it had all the stuff I needed, cool. Now, if something about the on-site team gave me a weird feeling when I was there, then I might go and like, I got to research further. Let me read these reviews. What were these people saying? So I think I do agree with you guys. If I was doing a deep dive, like I'll give the hiring example, but like when we interview someone, a lot of our staff will like go spelunking on their LinkedIn and socials and be like, who is this person really? I feel like if someone wanted to go spelunking, then I care about your
But you
the
and
time.
and real quick, Alex, because I can tell you ready to jump on something David said. uh, David and I did some early studies, not explicitly about Google, but where we found out that Facebook reviews mattered more than we realized at the very end of the cycle. So they may, I'm just using David's example, say 42 reviews, 4 stars. I'm not even going to read anything. But then when they get down to the very last part of that process, where it's like, now I'm down to 2 properties or I'm down to 3, that's when we found they would go back to Facebook and actually read the reviews and
yeah,
see, okay, maybe I can get the tiebreaker comes from some resident insights that were recent that I believe in, and that will actually like inform me on ultimately which place I'm going to call home.
Yeah,
for
Sorry, go
sure.
ahead, Alex.
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. When the resident starts that journey, it would start with a Google search, right? And it would say apartments near me, And that ranking up on that left side, of course, it starts with the ads, but then after that, the highest contributing factors to your local search SEO, and you guys are the experts here, so you guys can flunk this if it's wrong, but we know this to be true. The single highest contributing factor to that local search ranking is your consumer reviews. So it's the number of reviews, your star rating, and then the recency of those reviews all play a factor in that ranking. So if a community or if a resident searches apartments near me or looking for somewhere to move that's close by, they're going to get that big long list on the left of Google Maps. And what catches their eye is your star rating and the number of reviews. So if you had a property that had 67 reviews or 100 reviews, which isn't that outlandish to say we can get you 100 reviews. It just takes time, right? It just takes time of getting residents and having experiences. But if the other properties in the area have 20 or 10 or 15, you now are standing out as the most popular community in that area because you have more reviews and a better rating, or even the same rating, but more reviews is going to add to people seeing you and getting more eyeballs on your website.
Totally.
Yeah. I'm actually going to throw out a bone here and say it's been a while since Reid and I hit this, but in apartments, so what you're saying, Reid, like let's say you get to 20 and you feel okay, you get to 40 and you're like, I'm good. But if you can pass that 100 review mark, then you can start to use those reviews in your Google searches as well. Yeah. So that was something, Alex. I know we just started working with you guys on some joint clients, but there. You can actually pull in your GMB review star rating into your paid search ads. And you can even also drop that into your schema for your website so that when you show up in the regular standard Google search results, it can actually show the star rating next to you. It doesn't happen in apartments that often because you need 100 reviews, and most apartments never get there. And so it's just not standard practice, but I feel like that would be a good angle. And we can talk offline about this. And
I didn't know about that. Let's change the game here then. That's awesome.
Yeah. You'll see it a lot with like SaaS products. If you go to search for like a reputation management software, you'll see the review rating dropped in, but that's because they have a bunch of reviews. But apartments could do it. They just have to hit that magic number of 100.
Well, and I think it makes a big difference. We haven't been able to prove this out entirely, but imagine those paid search results, right? They typically hijack the first 4 positions you see before you get to the organic results. And if one of those has 4.5 stars in that ad and the rest don't have anything, who do you think is going to probably get clicked on? So there's a ton of value. And then for you guys, it's like, well, if you're at 80, don't stop there. You're getting closer. Mm-hmm. So it's a great incentive, which I'm sure where David's kind of going with it, to push them, nudge them forward and say, keep generating those reviews because it's a big differentiator in the paid market.
Well, the test client that we did with Opiniion, their reviews, I think it was like triple or quadrupled in the first 60 days. And it was like, this is awesome. But then that client was like, well, shoot, I don't know if I should keep this because now I've got my reviews up. So back to the recency. And like we tried to talk to them about it. But and I still think they're interested in that. But if we could then say, because one of their pieces of feedback were like, well, shoot, now I just like got a third of my building to review my property in 60 days. They're like, I'd rather have this dripped out slowly and only try to get like 10 reviews a month or something so it doesn't all spike. But where I'm going is like, Alex, you guys could actually help project like, hey, if you stay the course, we predict in 14 months is when you're going to hit 100 reviews or something like that. That way you could then say like 14 months, you have a goal, a finish line that you're going for, so you can hold on for you've said before to me offline that retention's not a problem with you guys, but I'm just saying it's nice to always have a goal and say, we want to hit this mark, and then we're all going to throw confetti in the air, and then we're going to help you turn it on your Google ads and drop it in your schema on your website and yada, yada, yada. And then now why should you keep going? It's like, because don't stop, just like, crush the competition, and that recency is going to help you keep showing up in the organic results.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I like the 100 for the organic results. That's a cool idea.
It's a great one for you guys to know.
Oh, hold on. You guys gotta do like a trophy, or something, and you're gonna call it the Centurion Club. And so every time someone hits 100, they become part of the Centurion Club, and you guys send them like a knockoff gold watch or something. See, we're gonna help your marketing.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
here's a fake gold watch. Good job.
I know it's going to be plastic, and
Keep using
Alex is going to engrave
opinion.
it at home with a butter knife and send it out.
Well, I was gonna throw out a different idea at you, and if you're already ahead of it, great. But how much keyword research is done, which I'm guessing little to none, um, in thinking about reviews? And so, as you're talking about what's really influencing like the rankings, obviously keywords is a big part of it, right? And you can't expect reviews or not, that you're gonna on the short tail keywords surpass apartments.com, right? For like those really, short tail broad. But on the long tail stuff, if it's like, hey, we'd really love for you guys to focus more of these reviews around Nest, or like your smart technology, because in this market, there's a lot of action, and activity in search volume, demand, the keywords like around smart homes or around Nest. Then you could actually get even more formulaic or prescriptive, I'll say, about the reviews themselves, where it's like, we're not going to just ask you to do a review about the property. We're actually curious about the smart locks we just installed. And that would even play well with some of those other vendors, as you talk about some of those folks you're partnering up with. But like, we're actually going to be doing a push right now in Minneapolis for smart locks, because security is a real concern in Minneapolis after all the social unrest, etc. But it's just a way to like take it up a notch where you could just get super prescriptive.
Yeah. We do a lot of data on the back end. Our goal is to help you know what you're really good at as a community or as a management group, and what you're really not good at from the voice of your customer, right? Your residents are the ones who know best. And a lot of times those conversations start between, the ownership group and the management company, and they start and end there. But with no real data from the residents, right? Surveys can go out, but usually a survey response rate is, and this could vary, right? But 3 to 6% of, depending on how many questions are in that survey. So if you have 100 unit complex, and you send out surveys and you get 6 responses back, you're making decisions now off of responses from 6 residents. Whereas with Opiniion, our average response rate, because we're a one-click, how are we doing 1 through 5? How is your move-in 1 through 5? That one click generates feedback and generates a score for that community. We're about 56% click rate on that first 1 through 5. So you can now generate feedback and understanding with more of your residents involved. And then we do word cloud analysis. We do positive and negative. Like I said, it's all based around tell you what you're really good at, tell you what you're not good at, and help you make decisions based off of the data from your actual residents versus assuming you know what people want.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to tee David up to talk to you about this one if he already hasn't, but I'm wondering if there's any possibility, and this isn't about trying to, throw product roadmap at you, but we are guilty of that.
Well, I mean,
Alex,
you are just a reputation management tool, so,
Did you say just? Is that what you said?
Yeah, now you're taking exception. But have you talked to him at all about the networked opinions?
Oh, yeah. I actually tried to connect him and what's his name together?
Garcia.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I tried to connect them. They didn't get to connect.
Just thinking, if you get a review, and use that approach, would you authorize then other residents up front, and then as soon as they see a good quality review, when you get that network effect that
I love it. I think it's actually something that Alex we could still talk to them about at some point. Basically, like a lot of what Alex is talking about with this back end data is outside of people actually just putting of it triggering to say put your review on Google. You can have like maintenance requests, and it can be an internal basically feedback system that says, hey, how was your maintenance request, blah blah blah, and then that comes back to the property manager or to corporate. And so it handles both sides of the system of like, hey, let's make sure, let's figure out what you're good and bad at internally that doesn't get where we don't push for the reviews, but then also help trigger folks to go to reviews. So it's all encompassing. But what I like about that, Alex, about where you're good at is one thing that you must have had clients at this point do this, but in just at the Digible Summit, we said, hey, it's important to put social proof up on your website
Yeah.
for people to end up, coming to your place or giving you a call. So what if have some of your clients taken some of that internal system, some of the internal feedback, or they could take the internal feedback and say, hey, our current residents actually rated us a 4.9 on our maintenance staff or something. And then why not just put that badge up on the website, like make a badge and put it on the website? Because what we had said at the summit is if you're LEED certified, or even if your staff won best regional at Lincoln or something. Go ahead and
Right.
put that on your website, because it doesn't matter. The consumer wants to see some sort of proof that, like, hey, you can stand out in an apartment. So what better way than to take where you're getting high marks on the internal feedback of your current customers and putting that on the website if it's good, right? If you get over a 4.5 on whatever, might as well start advertising it.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool idea. We had some discussions with a few management companies about that. Some also wanted to like iframe in their Google reviews, the actual Google reviews into their website,
Mm-hmm.
which is a cool idea as well. But I, I, you brought it up. We siphon those campaigns. We give you overall score, opinion score, but we also generate those by campaign. So you'll know how your move-ins, what your score is on your move-ins, what your score is on your move-outs, your maintenance request. That's a cool idea that I don't think we've thought of, is to be able to publish our maintenance requests versus the industry averages. Was this That's also something that we're developing into our app right now, is how you compare to the industry average, right, in every category. So these management companies can see, our move out process or our move in process is a 4.8. The industry average is a 4.2. So we're working them on the on the move in process, but our maintenance request is a 3.9 or 3.2, and the industry average is a 4.1. So where are we missing on this maintenance request? And they can start to generate better ideas around, what they're good at and what they're not good at. Not to highlight that again, but find out what you're not good at from the voice of your customer, from the voice of your resident, versus making that up on your own. I think in business school, wherever you go, everybody says the same thing. Don't guess at what people want, just ask what people want. And so we want to generate that for the communities that we serve.
Yeah. Well, sort of moving slightly ahead, I know Erica, when she scheduled this, she said, hey, Alex, be prepared for some hot takes. So, first of all, do you understand the hot take exercise, or should we go through it?
Give me a little bit of background. Tell
Yeah.
me more about it.
This has to be Reid's greatest contribution to my life.
Hot takes.
But well, Reid's the sports is the sports fan among the two of us, and he taught me, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, like the word. I don't know if you call it a word, the phrase, the category, hot takes.
Oh, hot
Is
takes.
this like is this like hot
We're-
ones or not the same?
No, yeah, no. Well, we're having wings sent to you, and you're gonna eat like the Chernobyl wings here in about 35 seconds.
It's just like kind of off the Around the Horn, if you've seen that show or heard of it, Alex. But
Yeah.
and then they'll do like hot takes on different, and they're competing with each other. I think that's the Around the
LeBron
Horn.
James versus Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
Or maybe that's not a good one.
you're looking
Jason
for
Kidd.
contrarian like stuff where it's like, you know what, I think this, everybody else thinks that. So that's the simplest way of putting it. It's like, where are you kind of contrarian to like what most people might say or think about a particular subject. So we try to keep it within the confines of
Well,
your expertise. So this would be
yeah.
most focused on opinions. You don't need to get into the LeBron James, Michael Jordan debate with us.
No, I'm glad you explained a little. The first thing that came to mind when you said that, a lot of times we'll talk to management companies and they'll say, well, I don't want to send the survey to everybody. I don't want to send opinion feedback requests to everyone because I don't want negative feedback or negative reviews being generated, because let's be honest. I mean, if somebody's complaining about your on-site team and you're the on-site team, it doesn't feel great, right? So that's very contrary to what we believe at Opinion, is get that feedback and then you decide what to do with it, right? If somebody is having a bad experience with your on-site team, one of the things that I strive to do and personally is take feedback as feedback. feedback is data. It's not personal. It's not attacking. It's not here to make you feel bad. It's just data to take in and for you to do something with. And so that would be my hot take for you is don't be scared to get feedback from everybody. Just use a tool that helps you do that in a meaningful way. And then use that feedback to take yourself to the next level.
Totally. Quick point of clarification, because I know obviously David has gotten more time with you, and I haven't seen the demo myself of the Opinion platform. But when you
Yeah,
mentioned making it easier to generate reviews versus like the hassle of going through, I guess, standard Google process,
right.
is that can you explain that for our listeners a little bit
Yeah,
more? Because I was just thinking, is this actually, does it work where you can vet the review, which I don't want to say would get unethical, but but where it's like, well, we're going to solicit reviews from you, but it's not directly automatically going to Google. And so then we're in between that and hence ultimately decide on what's published and what's not. I don't think that's the way this works, but yeah, could you clarify that whole two-step process? And
for
is there
sure.
any, yeah,
Yeah, for sure. So we are, I mean, Google, all those companies will have a no gating policy, and we do not gate reviews. We don't
cool.
send
Yeah,
4 and 5s this way, 1s, 2s, and 3s this way.
got it.
What
Yeah,
we do is send a very simple email, right? How are we doing 1 through 5 with the opportunity for the resident to leave feedback. When they click on that, if it's positive or negative, we give them the opportunity to leave that feedback privately. Both are given the opportunity to post their review online if they'd like. But in reality, we capitalize on the fact that when people are leaving negative reviews, they have a little bit of frustration in them, right? And frustration is also equal to impatience. And so if you could leave feedback in real time with the management company or with somebody to get that problem resolved, you would jump on that. And our ideology behind that, or our theory behind that, has been proven time and time again with our residents. We send, I mean, hundreds of, yeah, thousands and upon thousands of texts and emails every day. And a very high percentage of them are opting to leave that feedback privately for the management company to get it resolved. Without that, a 1-star review online, if you really think about the nuts and bolts behind that, and I've left a 1-star review before. I got trapped in an elevator once. That's a story for another day. But on a business trip, trapped in an elevator was not a good experience. And they didn't do anything for me after that. I was in there for like an hour and a half. It was not a good experience. But I wrote a 1-star review from them, and I knew damn well that 1-star review was just a bad review. It's not any, I didn't want anything from them. And that's what 1-star reviews are. They're not asking you for anything. They're just putting kind of like a bad hate mail, you could say, or something online that doesn't go away.
What kind
So
of
we want to help you avoid
establishment?
that. Yeah.
well,
What kind of
trying to hold you
establishment was this?
accountable. Yeah.
I want to know.
What kind of establishment?
Yeah.
It was a hotel.
Okay. I was just figuring. I actually agree with you, Alex, where I think it is like you got to bleed off the venom. But once, like, it's so hard to give. Like, people don't like to give negative. Most people, right? So,
Yeah.
like I have a bad experience with our chimney cleaner, and it's like I don't want to. It's like it takes you. You got to f up a lot of times for me to be like, all right, I'm going to tell this to you. Like, I'm really upset with like whatever. So once I get it out of my system, though, it's fine. It's off my chest. So to your point, like if I gave that internally and then I'm prompted to then like, hey, you should go ahead and leave that on Google if you feel whatever. Most people are not gonna like retype it. It's like I've already
Yeah.
emotionally finished, what I need. I got it off my chest. And
Yeah.
so to your point though, as well, why not? If someone leaves a negative feedback like the elevator thing, then they're going to do something about it, right? Like, so it's like it's better to me to get good and bad reviews because it's going to make your team do something about it versus if you're like, I'd actually rather never ask anybody for feedback and then you just like let everything be swept under the rug. You're going to be better off long term, even if there's some painful friction along the way as far as getting a few negative stars.
Oh yeah, you'll be way better off long term. I mean, using the elevator example or the chimney example, right? If that chimney sweeper would have sent you something The other difference is the proactive approach, right? If the opinion sweeper would have sent you something after the fact to say, hey, how do we do? You'd probably say 1 star, not great, right?
Hmm.
But if there was nothing that ever came to you to follow up on that experience, you're you're then just left with your own emotions, to for lack of a better phrase, and looking for somewhere to put those. And it was exactly that for me. I was so frustrated, I was sweaty, I was, from being trapped in there, that the first thing I did is got online after I spoke to the host, and he's like, yeah, there's nothing we can do for you, like, you're SOL, right? I got online and was like, man, I got to tell somebody about this,
Yeah.
because this was less than ideal. It wasn't how I expected to be treated after paying to stay in your hotel and be trapped in your elevator for an hour and a half, taking my time away from me.
Yeah. Well, the other thing with the like chimney sweep example, to your point, like let's say they asked how do we do, and I give like 1 or 2 stars, and I'm like, look, it took forever to schedule this. You canceled on me a bunch of times, and you left my rug dirty or something.
Yeah.
Then if they then get back to me within 24 hours, and say, hey, we heard you. That's not what we wanted. Then I'm not preaching over here. I've talked to Nicole 3 times about like when Digible starts making some money, I'm opening up a chimney sweep business in Bailey, because it's got to be easy to like set yourself apart. It's like Reid heard this because I want to open a trash company. I think would be an awesome garbage man or garbage company up there because they're so bad. So, anyways, that would go elsewhere. I'd be like, oh, they heard me. I'm not going to try to compete with Mr. Chimney. Forget about it.
I wonder how often when people do respond, because this is funny. First, the elevator, hotel, chimney
Yeah.
/ trash, and then for me, it's and I'm gonna be nice, even though I know we're not whatever his name is,
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. Thank you, not yet, but I had a bad experience a week ago with the taco place that I regularly go to, and I just got fed up. I was like, man, I'm here on a Friday night. There's hardly anybody in there, and they have 2 people. They're totally understaffed. I must have waited a half hour, and when I get hangry, I get hangry. And then I got a family, that's waiting for me to come back, and no apology, no nothing. Nobody's in there. I'm like, how did this take a half hour? And I didn't fault them as much because they were understaffed, but I'm still like, there's nobody in here.
Yeah.
And then it was cold when I got it, and
Oh
I
man.
just blew up. And I went online. They reached out to me the next day and responded, but I wanted nothing. I didn't even want to
You
read.
left a review?
I left a review.
Wow.
It's like I
See?
one per decade. But then I was like, I don't even want to talk to you. But I think it was actually better that I didn't for them, because it's like, well, on Google, you probably like showed up responding to me saying, we're sorry about your experience.
Mhm.
Is there anything we can do? So much better, obviously, to have done that than not respond. And then you can probably bank on most people that are pissed off. They don't want to engage anymore. I don't know if you did or if you did, Alex, with the hotel, but when somebody comes back to you, it's like, I, I'm just moving on. Like, I
Right.
don't want to bother with it. So I
Well,
don't know if you guys have data on that, how often people actually engage after you respond to a negative review.
yeah, it's never. I mean,
No.
online, if you're, I don't have any data, but from my assumption, from our experience in the space, if you reply to a negative review online, that's the end of the conversation. It
Yep.
just is, you're right. There's no notifications or from there. And to your point as well, and this is, you got me all fired up about my elevator experience now, but that experience, I was in between floors, and all I could hear them saying was like, let's just reboot it, let's reboot it, let's reboot it. And after an hour and a half, they finally called the fire truck, the fire company, to come get me out. But I understand that elevators can malfunction from time to time, right? I'm that's totally fine with me. But if you don't know what to do when it does malfunction, that was where it got me. Is like I sat in there for an hour and a half while you guys figured it out, right? And then finally called the fire company to come let me out. That was the big issue. And so I don't know what parallels you can draw with that, but just just own your area and do it well. And then follow up on the experience. That's the if I can.
Yeah.
That's my parallel that I'm drawing.
Well, I want to squeeze in a couple more questions.
Yeah.
I think David and I could go 2 more hours with you, but one is what I asked you before we got on, which was, uh, is it basically 90% of the focus for opinion and should be, and everybody else I'll say is on Google and Facebook or just Google, and then it's like those tertiary like reviews that you might see on, I don't know, an apartmentratings.com, and
Mm-hmm.
crazy as it sounds, Yelp now. When you look proportionally at the number of reviews on Google and Facebook, but in particular Google to everybody else, it's not even close. And so
Yeah.
I just didn't know how much effort or how you account for that when it's like you're working with the building, you're trying to build up their reputation. Do you just tell them up front, we're going to be all in on Google, or is it a more kind of diversified approach? And then if it is, why?
No, that's a good question. We think that, and it's our opinion, with
No pun
that,
intended. Wink,
no
wink.
pun intended, that Google is the biggest bang for your buck. If people are that resident journey to find a new community, even if in apartments.com might come after me after this, but even if they're going to apartments.com or apartment ratings or some of those other websites, they're probably starting that search in Google, right? They're Googling this property, and then they're finding that link and going to apartments.com, right? So we believe that the biggest bang for your buck with that first sniff test for a potential resident starts on the Google search.
Yeah.
So much
So
so that online review score there, your total reviews and that your star rating really is the window to your business at a glance for any resident.
So then what about the rest? You mentioned apartments.com, and obviously there's a bunch of other review
Mm-hmm.
sources. Do you just tell them, what do you tell them? How do you handle that? Or do you just not focus on it at all?
No, it's a good question. So we actually built rotators inside of our tool. We think all those platforms are important, right? No matter if you have, let's say you have, for example, 4.0 star rating in Google, but your apartments.com rating is a 2.0, right? You would want to change that, right? You're good on the sniff test. You still want to improve that with new reviews and new feedback and something fresh in that. But we also would want to improve that online reputation score. So I think it's different for everybody. But the way that the opinion tool works, we built rotators inside of those buttons. So you, as the business owner or the management company, can decide and really allocate where they want those residents to go to post a review. So if somebody resident clicks a 5, we can say 50% of those 5-star clicks will go to Google to post a review, 25% to apartments.com, and 25% to apartment ratings. And the idea behind that is to make it an all-in-one. You don't have to get back into it consistently to change it and right every other month change your strategy. We can just set it and let it run itself, and it will build your online reputation through the automated triggers in that, and alert you if you need to know anything, right, positive or negative, without your on-site team having to do anything different or um, adding to your day to day.
Yeah, it's interesting between apartments and, like, I know this may sound crazy, but movies, is that when you search a movie, you see Rotten Tomatoes almost instantly, like in the search results. And I know this because I'm a huge movie buff. But instead of Google, showing up, which all seems, I know, obvious, right? It's like, but they
Mm.
have the audience score and then the expert score. And then there's also the Metacritic, which grabs all the different review sites and tells you, hey, this is Rotten Tomatoes plus whatever, Google this, and this. But when it comes to, multifamily, there isn't it,
A Metacritic?
yeah, there isn't a Metacritic. I guess the closest would I think apartment ratings, but I'm not even sure about that.
No, it
Whether
just does
they
its own
so
website.
it just does its own. It just
Mm.
seems like it'd be valuable,
I guess ORM would be the closest from JT Turner, but it's not live. It's like
Certainly didn't show up in search results.
right.
Yeah.
That's on
They
yeah,
they
yeah.
they've, not to call out antitrust here, but they've really monopolized over the last few years multifamily reviews where it's like uh and I know it's because of what Alex just said. Everybody starts their searches there, but I appreciate that. I'll say about movies is that Google's not telling me whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
There's a what feels like a little more legitimate, I'll say, third party, source.
Which is interesting though. You would think Google as an aggregator should be its own Metacritic.
Yeah.
Like it should
Yeah.
offer that.
Yeah. Totally. That's what I mean by
Yeah.
antitrust is like you're choosing not to
Right.
show Facebook, you're choosing not to show apartments ratings, apartments.com. You only show yourself.
Yeah. But I do think Jay Turner could do more there with their ORM if it was live and searchable people could be going straight to them like apartment ratings. But you're right, there should be like an aggregator that would be good.
Yeah. Well, unless you want to comment on that, Alex, I have a question about the future of reviews. I love to talk about the future.
Hot
Love
take:
it.
we're going back to the future.
Yeah, there you go. um, well, what do you think the future is for reviews? And I'm going to lead you just a little bit. But when Amazon, is like the king of reviews, I'll say, everybody's buying all their products through their right. And lo and behold, I don't know when this happened. David's way better at that than I am. Maybe it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but video reviews show up. And I will honestly say that and maybe I'm in the minority, but I've put more stock in those, as you were talking about, like almost this trust index that we have as consumers. When I see somebody post a video with their review, because I had gotten so skeptical and part of it's, and also because of this guy on my right, telling me about some of the scams and the review farms on Facebook, that they were really under siege. I think kind of public opinion was becoming like more and more skeptical about Amazon reviews. And then they released the Amazon's Choice, right, where they're actually putting themselves out there to help, lend credit to a product. And that's not in a review. But getting back to the video reviews, I really do like check those out, because I'm like, well, I'm going to listen to what this person has to say, and they actually have the product. They receive the product. They're showing me the product, etc. So I don't know if this is anywhere on the horizon, but is Google, have you had any knowledge of this, or did I miss this already, going to enable video reviews? And then imagine how cool that would be to actually see somebody doing a tour of their own home after they've moved in or whatever. And I know it might scare the crap out of operators, but where they could say, hey, instead of a TikTok video, but this is my jam, like this is my home, it's a badass crib, blah blah blah, or not, right? But so that's one thing. Our video reviews potentially on the horizon with Google, or in any way with multifamily. And then part two, which is less, I think, interesting or sexy, but I'll still ask, is the voice element, right? With like Alexa and Google Home and all this voice search. Is there going to be more of that when it comes to reviews, where instead of typing in on my phone and all that, that I'm just simply saying, hey, Google, tell me about the reviews for this property.
Mm-hmm.
So, and anything else you got, I'd be interested to hear. But yeah, what does the future of reviews look like? Do you think it's going to change much in the next 5 to 10 years?
Man, it's nothing's for sure, right? I love your ideas, the thoughts there. I actually have one more to throw at you, which I think is the next natural flow for reviews. I think videos would be awesome, right? I think that is natural as well. But kind of the Uber model. Uber gives the driver the opportunity to rate the rider, and the rider the opportunity to rate the driver. And so now, because how often do businesses deal with customers that are not easy customers, right? I mean, there's that 80-20 principle. If 20% of your customers cause you all the problems, couldn't you give them like a 1-star review and say, to all the future companies that may see them, like, hey, you probably don't want to deal with Alex. He's a handful, right? Or some sort of way to track that. And I think it would take a massive aggregator to get all that data. And in my thought is Google would be the one to make that happen, right? Everyone has a Gmail account, and I guess there'd be ways around it, like you could just create a new one if you had a bad reputation on there. But you could base it off your phone number. I'm just getting in the weeds on it, but I think that would be incredible, so that communities could now rate the residents who live at their on site. Right now, I mean, I'm just going deeper into that thought, but I mean, would you act differently knowing that you had a reputation online as well? Like you may or may not be able to land your next apartment because you have a poor resident reputation, right? Or some sort of,
Starting to go a little
hang up.
Black Mirror on us, Alex. I was
Well,
going to
I'm getting
say,
deep, huh? I'm getting real deep.
Yeah, no, I love it. I was going to say why in the middle of that instead of, because I think that's less likely, but I'm not at all against it. But on Amazon, you have the authorized sellers, right? You can look at that seller's profile. I would love to see, and this shouldn't be difficult, that reviewer, are they classically a 1-2 star reviewer? Because then I discount that. And it's like, I think when you reward a bad review, meaning like you reach out and give them a gift card, you're just perpetuating the problem. Now they've been
Sure.
trained no different than a kid. It's like, okay, so when I like throw a tantrum, I get rewarded for it. And then they just keep creating more and more bad reviews wherever they go, because it's like people that are like lawsuit happy, you know? It's like, I won a lawsuit. Now I'm going to like see if I can get rich or live the rest of my life off that. And so if you were actually shown like a seller profile on Amazon that this person on average, you know, is offering 2.1 star reviews, I would think twice about what they put up. Sorry, go ahead, David.
No, I like what Alex is saying. I do think it's a little Black Mirror, but it's the true identity thing. It's like I definitely would love like real identities being used online across the board, where it's like, oh, I do know this is a real person, that's a real person, and then your reputation follows you. Now I know there's going to be some collateral damage with that, where like
Yeah.
someone gets hosed for some reason. So this is like a whole nother podcast that we should have where we're trying to figure it out. But but back to like you have credit score, and credit score is just like, can you pay for this thing? But it doesn't say like how good or not good of a customer are you. So
Right.
why not have a credit score like thing to both of your guys' points? But it's on like, well, yeah, sure, this customer can pay for that Cadillac, but they are going to be riding you like every couple weeks. I remember when I sold cars, there's this one guy. He was my boss, and I was working three jobs actually, and he was at one of the jobs, and he needed a new truck because he drove like 60,000 miles a year, and I was like, oh well, I think I could get you a discount right now. Like Dodge is trying to move trucks, and it was like, I think I could get you like $12,000 off. I said, but don't tell my GM.
No, I remember this story.
He goes in and immediately he sits down. He's like, David said he'll give me $12,000 off a truck. I'm like, you son of a gun. Then
Oh.
he buys the truck, and by the way, that we would have given him $12,000 off either way, but it was like, come on, don't just like hose me like that. But the and he complains about his wheels later. His wheels get stolen, and he came back to get them replaced on I don't know. I think we gave like free tires if they ever go bad or something. For some reason, like his wheels got stolen, we were going to replace them, and we gave him like a different set of wheels back. And he's like, no, 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 these I had the chrome wheels, and our parts department was like, yeah, but those weren't real chrome. Those were just like capped. We gave you actual steel wheels. And he's like, what? It wasn't real chrome. You misadvertised me in the first place. And yeah, and I was like, holy crap. So I think it doesn't matter if he has good credit. He's a pain in the rear, once you have him as a customer. So I'd rather know that. And I'm not going to give someone that's a pain in the rear as deep of a discount. I don't care if you can pay for it.
100%.
That's a
It's
good
like
example.
Carfax for people, like for consumers.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
It's like if I just knew the history of bullshit that you left behind, I would know how and if I even want to work with you.
So where I was going to go to help wrap this whole thing up, Reid, if Carfax and Reid Wyckoff came back, who would have given Reid a good customer score?
Everybody. I'm a sweetheart. I'm a freaking teddy bear, man.
Yeah. Even your taco
Always
joint?
spreading the love, except for the taco place.
Yeah.
Except for the taco joint.
That was well deserved.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I know we're way over, so appreciate you sticking with us. But is there anything you want to get off your chest before we sign off?
No, not that I can think of. We're just here to help. So thanks you guys for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, if you catch us between now and Optech, you can go ahead and plug your event. We may be there, but you guys will be at Optech, right?
Yeah, we'll be at Optech. I don't have a booth number to share, but Opinion will be at Optech, and we're actually hosting an event that evening at it is called the Capitol Wheel. So if you'd like to attend, reach out to Opinion. We're just opinion.com. It's spelled a little different. I'm sure these guys will let you know. It's Opiniion. But come join us at Optech. We'd love to get to know you better.
Tell them that we sent you.
Onward and upward.
Yeah.